is Theresia Jones. Welcome back. Not sure how we're going to do this year, but either way it goes, we still have to be aware of our students. And so our next class is load and unload. So this is mirror image. This is reflections of each other. We want to always be in reflection of each person as far as loading and unloading, and we need to follow KDE's rules and guidelines. So loading and unloading, they come out 3 o'clock, wild as they can be. You let them off in the morning. They're kind of slumpy, but in the evenings, 3 o'clock, they're ready to go. So in 60 seconds, you just saved a life. 60 seconds can mean the difference between the child getting on the bus and being safe, or the child getting off the bus and being safe. So in that 60 seconds, you could have possibly saved a child's life. Sequence described in this chapter, in Chapter 7, for loading and unloading students, shall be used by all Kentucky State Certified Driver Trainer instructors when training drivers in order to keep consistency throughout the state. I've taught this class many times in Frankfurt. I've taught it at Louisville at a STAC conference. So this class is very important to me as far as loading and unloading goes. There are steps that you can do to make this a lot safer for you and for your students. Transport students in the greatest danger while loading, while waiting for, boarding, and exiting a school bus. So in the mornings, it's dark. In the evenings, they're in a hurry. People's in a hurry. Nobody wants to be behind a school bus. But you have to be consistent with what the state requires in order to keep your children safe. The driver of a school bus must follow procedures in order to give the most reasonable and safe protection to those students which he or she is responsible. We are responsible for our students, and I'm sure that all of you are just like me. I take them on as my children as long as I have them on my bus. Loading and unloading procedures are visual scan. So you want to do a visual scan. You want to check for pedestrians and vehicular traffic as you reduce your speed. So as you're coming up on a stop, you always want to make sure where every car, every truck, every dog, every student is in that time. Now you're going to tap your brakes. It's not a hard tap, it's just a real light tap on the brakes to let them know, anybody behind you, that you are about to stop, that your bus intends to do something. You'll need to do that 3 to 5 times. Visual scan. Now you've already started looking for your kids. You've tapped your brakes. Now you're going to do a visual scan looking for where your kids are. You're still checking the cars, and you're checking to check on any vehicles that may come around into your loading area. So when you see vehicles and you've got your yellow lights on, maybe they don't see your yellow lights. Maybe they're coming really fast and they don't have time to stop from when you're there. So just make sure that you are in control of the situation before you actually ask your children to come on. You want to check to make sure they're not coming around the left side or the right side of your bus. This will be included in this visual scan. Now you're going to set the warning lights. Activate the warning lights 150 to 200 feet, which is 4 to 6 bus lengths from the loading area. And then you'll want to look down to check that the indicator light, make sure that the warning lights are operating. So about 200 feet away, what you have done at this point is you have done a visual scan, you've tapped your brakes, and now you see where your children are. Now you've turned on your warning lights. So once all this is done, activating the warning lights 150 to 200 feet away, 4 to 6 bus lengths from loading area, check that yellow light to make sure that it's working. You are going to stop. You're going to set your park brake. So now you've still not opened your door. You've not done anything except for having your caution lights on. You're still checking to make sure that everything around you has come to a complete stop. Bring the bus to a complete stop within 10 feet of the nearest student. You have to train your children or ask your children to go back 10 feet from where you want them to be. Even if there's a tree line there or something, you might want to move them back as far as 25 feet. An extra 2 or 3 seconds is not going to make the difference, but it will make a big difference in how safe you get them on the bus. So now, the driver should always set your park brake when you're loading and unloading to avoid driver error that may allow the bus to move. So once your park brake is set, your kids are 10 feet away, you want to let them know that it's time for them to move when you indicate it's time for them to move. So now you've brought your bus to a complete stop, always set your park brake. Now once your park brake is set, then you're going to put your bus into neutral. We don't have parks, so we have to go into neutral. You're going to do another visual scan at this time to make sure that the kids are still standing where they need to be and all the cars, trucks, everything has stopped. Now when it's safe to do so, you're going to activate your stop arm, your red loading lights, and your crossing gate if it's equipped. You can check all of these things by looking into your crossover mirrors or in your double nickel mirrors. That will ensure that you can see your crossing gate out front and your stop arm on your left hand side. When it's safe to do so, activate the red warning lights by activating the stop arm. Check the red indicator light to ensure the red loading lights are operating. Just like the yellow indicator light, you can check for your red. Do a visual check to see the stop arm and the crossing gate, if equipped, has opened. Now you're going to load your kids. So it appears here these kids are getting on the bus in the evening from the school. So you're going to perform a visual scan to ensure all vehicular traffic has come to a complete stop. You're going to open up your service door, and then students should board the bus in an orderly manner. All students must wait until the bus arrives at the stop. So make sure they don't start moving as soon as they see your big yellows. They want to make sure that they don't start moving until you signal them to come on board, and those students who must cross the road shall do so 10 to 15 feet in front of the bus. Every effort shall be made to eliminate crossing on the roads. Sometimes we may have to turn around and go backwards, make a turn around and go back down the same road in order to get them in on the safe side. Ask your kids to use your handrail. Sometimes in the winter the steps are slick. It's been raining for the last 5 years, it seems like here, so it's always rain, always wet on the stairwell, so make them use the handrail. Count your kids. If you're supposed to pick up 4 or 5 kids, count 4 to 5 kids. You know, you can always ask, where's your sister, where's your brother, whatever that is. They may still be coming. Seating, they should go directly to their seats after boarding a bus. I use what's called an angel seating on my bus. Angel seating is where when they come on, they immediately go to the seats right behind me. And this gives you time to get to know your kids, talk to your kids, learn a little bit about your kids. And I assure you, if you try this, you will learn that they are more susceptible to doing things as you want them to be done. So take the time and learn your kids. But anyway, as they're moving to those front seats, you can have them sitting there. You can move on to the next stop. And when you come to the next stop, those children can proceed to their seats while you're picking up the next students. And then you can start and visit with them just a little bit. The more you learn about your kids, the more interested you are in your student's life, the less likely they are to give you a hard time. Now you're going to close your door. When it's safe to do so, the driver will close the service door. The driver shall double check the stairwell to ensure that students are not stuck in the door and the handrail, etc. This is when you're closing the door, the student should be sitting, but I guess this is when you are exiting, kids are exiting. You'll want to double check that step, and down in the door, maybe you've gotten distracted for just a second. So you want to make sure that student is completely out of the way and accounted for. Now the visual scan, this is step 15. You perform a visual scan of pedestrians and vehicular traffic and check your mirrors. So you've closed your door, but you're still not moving because you want to ensure that your children are completely out of the way. Step 16 is your gear. When it's safe to do so, the driver will place the gear selector into the proper gear. So that's whenever you've put you're starting to leave now, so you're in neutral, your parking brake is pulled, so you want to put your bus back into drive, and then you want to put it into gear at this point. Release your parking brake. With your foot on the service brake, the driver will release the parking brake. Now you're going to do another visual scan. Driver should perform a visual scan to ensure that the traffic and to check your mirrors. When it's safe to do so, proceed with your route. So in the loading and unloading, the following sequence shall be used when loading and unloading all students. There are 4 steps to this, or 4 elements. It's approach, you stop, you load your kids, and you shut the door. So on the approach, you're going to do a visual scan. Driving, you're doing a visual scan, you're checking everything. Tap your brakes 4 to 5 times, just to let the traffic know that you intend to stop. You're continuing to do a visual scan at this point, looking in every mirror. And then you're going to set forth your warning lights about 150 to 200 feet away. When you stop, you're going to set your parking brake, put your bus into neutral, do another visual scan just to make sure that all traffic has stopped, making sure that your children are where they're supposed to be. And then at this point, you are going to stop arm your red light, loading lights, and the crossing gate if it's equipped. You can check for all of these things to make sure they're happening. You can check the indicator light, look at your left mirrors. You can see if your stop arm has deployed, and looking into your crossover mirrors in the front, you can see if your crossing gate has deployed. Now you're going to load and unload. You're going to do a visual scan. Open the door. Count your kids as they're getting on and off. You want to make sure that you see all 4 children go across the road, or you want to see all 4 children go at least 10 feet away from the bus before you start to move. I challenge you to go 25 feet with your kids. Have your kids to use a handrail, and then when it is all clear, then you can start to move. So now you're going to close your door. You're going to do another visual scan. Put your bus back into gear, which is drive at this point. Release your parking brake, and then do another visual scan before you proceed. Stop arms shall be used at all times when loading and unloading students. This includes while you're on school property. I know sometimes some people forget. You know, it's a little easy to forget sometimes, but if you'll just keep in mind just to set forth an effort to, before you do anything, just to look out your mirrors whenever you sit down to make sure that those lights are working. Students should remain seated until the bus comes to a complete stop. You should not stop a bus within an intersection or within 30 feet of any flashing beacon sign or traffic control located on the side of the road. So we can't stop if there's a flashing beacon that says construction 10 feet away or construction 100 feet away or whatever it is. We can't stop there, not within 30 feet of that sign. Train your students to listen for the sound of the park brake before they start to stand up. That's a great indicator for them that you can start out young with them and say, you know, don't move until you hear this sound. That will ensure that nothing can happen and the kids can't be thrown forward. While a school bus is parked to load or unload students, other school buses should not pass. Sometimes we have a little bit of trouble with that, somebody running your stop arm and it being another driver whenever you're sitting at the school. So just be aware, be courteous, realize that the driver that's in front of you, their time is just as important as your time, and try not to be in too big of a hurry and go around them. School bus drivers should set an example for all other drivers. While we're driving a school bus, people look at us differently. They tend to see us as a different It's a little more that we should be more aware of our surroundings. We should be better drivers than what's on the road. So be aware of that. This includes the time the bus is parked on school grounds. Show respect for other buses that are stopped on school grounds when loading and unloading their students. Do not permit the pupils to get off any place except for their regular stop unless they have written permission authorized with the signature of the school administrator and with the proper date and time. What this means is, everybody knows this pretty much, that when you have an extra kid on your bus in the evenings, you're going to have a note that says that they're allowed to ride your bus. Now, if this is a transfer bus for them, you will just look at the note and you will give the note back to that student. And if it is on the home route, then that note will be left with you. I save mine in a baggie. You probably won't get 4 or 5 a year, but I do save mine. I put them in a baggie. I keep them in my bulkhead just in case something ever comes up. You have proof. It's written right there that you had the permission, because you never know. Just never know. Every effort will be made to eliminate students crossing the roadway. This is in pursuant of KRS 189 3.75 or .375. States in part that, however, no driver shall stop a school bus or church bus and allow it to remain standing for the purpose of discharging students on the opposite side of the road or highway of 4 or more lanes. This means we do not let kids cross over 4 or more lanes to get on or off a bus at any place. We'll go down, turn around, come back the other direction if that's what we need to do. But we can't stop traffic on 4 lanes. We can only stop traffic on 2. Provided that there is provision, does not prohibit discharging of passengers at marked pedestrian crossings. School bus behavior. Kids need to act the same at the school bus stop as they do when they're on a bus. Most fatalities occur outside of the school bus. This is in front, rear, and down the sides. This is your danger zones. Darkness of the early morning and active youngsters waiting to board the bus and are combined to make this time of day especially dangerous. Maybe they're out underneath the street light, maybe it's a pretty morning, it's a cool morning, but it's still, they like to play. So you never know where they're going to be. So always instruct your kids to be where they're supposed to be. It is school bus driver's duty at the earliest possible opportunity in the beginning of the year to instruct your students on how and where to wait for a school bus. A student waiting for the bus should be instructed where to stand. You're supposed to be at least 10 feet, but it doesn't hurt anything for them to be back there. I mean, 25, 30, 40 feet, it doesn't matter. They should be 5 minutes before the time for the bus to arrive. We cannot wait. If we spend 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes waiting for every student to come out of their house, then we're 40 minutes late for getting to our schools. So if you're scheduled to be there at 7 a.m., they need to be waiting at 6:55. Wait well away from the street or the road. There again, it's 10 feet, but nothing says it has to be 10. It has to be exactly 10 feet. It needs to be 10 feet or more. So don't let them wait 6 feet or 5 feet from the road. Move them back until you can see them farther away. They need to wait on the side of the street in which they live. They shouldn't cross the street until the bus comes to a complete stop. So if you've got a little back road or something and you've got a kid that lives on the left-hand side and there's nothing on the right-hand side, maybe somebody else's driveway, they still can't wait on that side. You have to be the one that indicates for them to cross. They should wait on the side of the street until the bus comes to a complete stop. Traffic in both directions is controlled, and you signal them to cross. What we teach in this class and in other classes in Frankfort and in Louisville Stack is it's a solid hand. It's always a solid hand that you're holding traffic with, and you'll turn your hand solid and move your kids across the street. Any kind of indication in the wave, You know, you're waving your kids on. This can also indicate that you want the driver that is stopped to come on. So a clear, solid hand is always best. The student shall cross in front of the bus a distance approximately 10 to 15 feet in order for you to see them. I've noticed that most kids will walk right in front of that crossing gate. So that's a little bit dangerous, because if you get hit in the rear end, it's possible that they could still be hit. So you want to train them to go out there 10 to 15 feet. You'll want to maintain eye contact with you as they're crossing the road. If they're coming across in the mornings and they're getting onto the bus, you want to keep them in your sights. They'll want to keep you in their sights. But in the evenings, if you are dropping them off, you will need to train your children to stop in front of your bus and wait for you to signal them to go on across the highway. Because you never know if somebody's trying to impede on your side of the road, left or right. Teach your children to respect the property of others. Maybe they live the second house back. They want to avoid walking on their grass, throwing trash down in their yard. They don't want to pick their flowers. They don't want to damage their shrubs. They don't want to throw rocks into their yard or whatever that is. So you'll just need to instruct them on how to respect the property of others. Keep their belongings out of the roadway. Book bags are heavy. Kids want to carry them out to the edge of the road and they want to sit them down. And then they may actually go back to where they're instructed to stand, but they don't want to carry the book bag the whole time they're waiting for the bus. You will have to instruct kids to carry their book bag regardless, because if they sit it down, you pull up, you've gotten distracted, they've bent down to pick up a book bag, and at this point you don't see them. You've maybe gotten everybody else on the bus, you close the door, they're still bent down, and you release your park brake, something happens, whereas your child, it's under your bus. So make sure that they don't pick up anything until you are made aware and you give them permission, but make them carry their book bag until they're on the bus. Avoid loud behavior. Proper behavior is expected at all times. Say they come out 2 houses, the people that's in the front house are still sleeping and the kids are out there just, wanting to play basketball in the street or scream or whatever it is. You have to teach your children to be respectful and avoid loud behaviors. Line up in a single line well away from the street, at least 2 big steps from the curb when the bus is sighted. A lot of kids want to walk straight toward your bus. As soon as they see their big yellows come on, they want to start coming toward the curb or toward the street. So instruct them to stay still until you have completely ensured the bus is stopped. Nothing can happen, and then you motion for them to come forward. They want to approach the bus after it stops and board in an orderly manner after you signal them, telling them to use the handrail. Go immediately to their seat. Sit down facing forward. Driver cannot start the bus until everyone is seated. So there again, the angel seat will come into play. If you sit them in their seats, if you sit 2 seats behind you or in the seat directly behind you, you know they're already sitting down. You can move on to your next stop, and then they can move to their stop whenever you're picking up the next students. Driver has the responsibility of controlling traffic when you're loading and unloading the students on his or her bus. He or she has to minimize the risks involved in their loading, and to do this, he or she must correctly follow the aforementioned guidelines. Loading and unloading is incredibly important, and this should not be taken lightly. We should all take this as that 60 seconds to save a life. Thank you for your attention. Welcome back. Have a good year.